You know what you don't see in the final 16 of the NCAA basketball tournament now? Present day, what you don't see? You don't see George Mason. You don't see Iona. You don't see Florida Atlantic. You don't see Wichita State. I can go down a list. Tell me you know where this is going. See, we used to, not that long ago, we used to see programs like that. They didn't dominate the final 16. They certainly didn't dominate the final 8. They didn't dominate the final 4 by any stretch, but they would pop up. You would see them, and you would think it's cool. We used to see the programs like those in the final 16, and that is what made the tournament cool, and that is what made the tournament interesting. They're not blue bloods, and they're not from blue blood conferences, and it made the tournament different historically, and it's no more. It's no more. The NCAA basketball tournament, final 16, where we are now, I think it tells you everything about college sports and the future of college sports, or whatever is left of it. Now, you got to decide if, one, I guess you could decide if you agree with what I'm saying. I think the evidence is pretty much there. But then you have to decide, do I care? Do you care enough? And, is it gonna push you away from watching? Those are all up to you. But I do think this is the future. What you get now is exactly what you're going to continue to get, and more so. What it does tell you, I think, is that non-blue bloods and powerful programs from the biggest 4 conferences now are nothing more than a farm system. Okay? It's happened in college football already, and I think it's plainly obvious now in basketball too. And I think people are now catching on. Every year historically, one of the great things about the tournament that everyone could get into was, those dark horses. I hate to use the term Cinderella, but that's what made it cool. That's what made it different. It was a sport. It's been a sporting event unlike any other, and now it's a sporting event just like every other. And certainly in college sports, it's a sporting event that's going to be dominated by those who buy the other guys. They poach the talent, they pay them, and that's how you win. So if you are one of these mid-majors, if you are the Florida Atlantics of the world, you got no chance. And I'll explain why. And then you can decide if you think that's okay or not, or better yet, what to do about it. The tournament, I think most people agree, right? If you make a list of great sporting events, great American sporting events, I think the NCAA basketball tournament has been on that list for a long time. I do. We love it because it produces shocking upsets and really cool underdog stories. Wasn't it Florida Atlantic that was in the Final Four a year ago? Remember this school called Oakland? Right? They were Oakland, Michigan, I think it was. There's a reason I'm bringing them up. We've had George Mason, we've had Iona, but we don't have any more. If you want examples, how about this? Really good story in Yahoo Sports. It says March Madness. Is NIL the death of Cinderella? And the story is all about Oakland's head coach. So guess what has happened with some of these programs I've just mentioned? How about this? Oakland, which I think is somewhere in Michigan. Oakland has players now, okay? Oakland now has players on, let's see, 3 separate. There's one at Ohio State. There's one at Alabama. There's one at Tennessee. And there's one at Florida. Count up the starters. Those are just players from Oakland. Get this. Ohio, North Florida, and Iona. Okay? All the same thing. Florida Atlantic. Remember that? 2023 Final Four team. Okay? Now they have starters at Arkansas. They have starters at Florida. They have starters at Michigan. Belmont, the Belmont Bruins, they now have players at Maryland, Ole Miss, and Florida. In other words, the entire 16 is made up from schools, players poached, paid to leave those schools to go to the power conferences, and they are all over the final 16. What happened in college football is exactly what's happening now in basketball. A mid-level school or a non-power conference program has a really good player or team, okay? Blue Bloods poach them, and they're gone. In many cases, they're gone right after the season. I mean, you can now find these stories everywhere. Now, again, you have to decide, is that really okay or not okay? That every time one of these programs produces a good player, like I said, you can read this Yahoo story, and there's an entire list of these programs coming from nobody programs that are now poached and paid and are all over the Final 16. And they'll be all over the Final Four. That's the way it works now. So, and it's happened in football too, naturally. These guys will play a season. If they have a good season, they're gone. And I think the sport is littered with tampering. It's only given lip service. Nobody does anything to anybody. It's a lawless sport. You know, in the NFL, where they have rules, they have policies, they have agreements, they have standards. You find none of that in college sports now. And that's why tampering, you know, is what's Florida Atlantic going to do? Say Florida stole our players? Then what? Yeah, pretty much did. They did. So tampering is all over the place. Guys jump to the next deal. Football and basketball players have become mercenaries. You could say, well, coaches do too, Jeff. Okay, sure. But the players have become mercenaries, one-season mercenaries. The effect is the UTSAs of the world, Florida Atlantics, Texas States, right? They have no chance to win. They have no chance to go to the next level. For every good player they have, they recruit a guy somebody else misses. They cultivate a talented player. They make him better. And then as soon as it's noticeable, he's gone. In the case of some of these programs, like Oakland, 3 of their starters gone. Now, you can't blame the players. They're going to go wherever the money is. It is a money sport played by mercenaries and who'll bounce from season to season to season. But I do think fans lose something here. The tournament has lost something here. You don't have these nobodies coming out of the 64 that are exciting. So what's the solution? If you think there needs to be a solution, because I don't think there will be. I think there should be a solution. I think there should be agreements. It's fine to get paid. What's so wrong with having an agreement with a program? I don't get that. I still haven't understand why not. They invest in you. They're training you. The NFL has them. Everybody else has them. So what's so awful about having terms to live by, but it won't happen? It won't happen. Everything I've just described, which you may or may not care about, but everything I've just described is not going to change. And the reason why it won't change, no matter, and I applaud these coaches like the guy from Oakland and the coaches from all these mid-majors who are telling their story, because I think it needs to get out there. And I think in this tournament in particular, we're losing a lot from that. But it won't happen no matter how much they complain and no matter how right they are. I recruited the guy, I trained him, and I don't get anything for him. I've advocated before, see if you like this, I've advocated before that those programs should be compensated for you poaching their players. Now, none of the things I'm going to suggest are going to happen because the Blue Bloods don't want them to happen. You know, these mid-major programs in football and basketball are nothing more than like the Washington Generals playing the Harlem Globetrotters all the time. The Blue Bloods don't care. They just need them to fill a spot every now and then, or they want them to go ahead and train some players so they can go poach them. But, I mean, I've advocated, and I will advocate 2 things, but it won't happen. There will be no changes. There will be no rules because the major programs don't want it. So what you now have is a system that works like this. And it's all over the Final 16, and it's all over college football. The system works like this. Mid-majors are the minor leagues to bigger programs, and the bigger programs are the minor leagues to the NFL and NBA. It's just a feeding system after a feeding system after a feeding system. The problem in this model is that the NFL or the NBA is not compensating or paying any training to college programs. And then the big college programs are doing nothing to compensate the mid-majors who are losing the very little talent that they're able to get. And what happens is every time they find somebody any good, they just automatically leave. Several of these players at Oakland, their coach had left at the end of the season. Now, they're leaving for money and cars. Absolutely. Okay. The fix, it's much like what happens in soccer. And then they call it a transfer, and there's a transfer portal now. So listen, if you take my defensive end, how about if I get a scholarship or two back? I don't know what's so awful about that. And or you should have agreements. That's not stopping somebody from making a living. It's not stopping. The NFL guys make a great living, and they have contracts. You're not able to poach other teams' talent. There's some respect, some organization in professional sports. In college sports, you have absolutely none. Now, you laugh it off now and say, who cares now? Nobody wants to watch Texas State or Oakland or any of those people. Okay, they're going to end up going away altogether. I mean, it's an impossible cycle to continue. Anytime they get a good player that people want to go see, a good player that would recruit other good players, that player is automatically poached and gone. And it's hard for those programs to find, recruit, and cultivate that talent anyway. As soon as they get it, it's gone, and they're not compensated at all. They get nothing in return for being a farm system. You have to at least appreciate their position here. And I don't know why they don't say what I'm saying, and that is, listen, every time I produce a good player, you buy them. Okay, if I'm going to be a farm system, I need something in return. That's where the system should go, and the Blue Bloods will give that 5 seconds because they don't have to, and they don't care. The greediest industry now, certainly in entertainment, are blue blood programs in football and basketball who don't want any rules, they don't want any compensation, they don't want any agreements whatsoever, so they can continue to poach, and it didn't cost them a cent. It's an upside-down model, and it's not sustainable.